Grace and peace. Welcome to Judah's Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative YouTube channel. I'm your host, Apostle Cheryl. Now, before we get started, I'm going to give you a few seconds. Check down here below the video, okay? And make sure you subscribe if you've not done so already. And then click the bell so that you receive notifications every time we upload a new video. We upload a new video every Sunday evening at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And did you realize that you can actually share this video even as you're watching this video? So don't forget to share. All right, so we're going to be talking about manipulation, and we've divided this up into three segments. So segment one is manipulation 101. Manipulation 101, just like we're going to school, okay? We're going to talk about the 9 tactics, and there are many others, but we're going to focus on 9 tactics that manipulative people often use in order to gain their way in a relationship to exert power and control. And so manipulation is a key component of domestic violence, and it can happen in a variety of settings, including politics and including ministry. Okay, so manipulation can occur on a greater scale than one on one. And any relationship may have manipulative qualities in it, depending on who the individuals are. Okay, let's get started. You know, I like to define things to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. So, in relationships, when we talk about manipulation, we're talking about the fact that words that are verbally stated, words that are omitted, um, and actions that attempt to control how another person feels, thinks, and behaves is manipulation, okay? And the goal is to affect their perspective of themselves and the relationship and their entire worldview. So, manipulation really is a tool that's utilized to impact and influence the way a person views themselves, views that particular relationship, and how they view the world, because how we view the world impacts how we interact with the world, right? And what we believe our options are, and how much power and control we believe that we have over the things that occur in our own lives. So, we're going to talk about 9 tactics of manipulation that are very, 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 very much used in relationships that are abusive and toxic. Um, Emotional manipulation can be really hard to discern, right? Because it's shaping how you think and how you behave and how you feel. And so it's hard to discern, and sometimes it's really hard to figure out if you're being manipulated or if you're just viewing things um, in a way that's less than flattering. Okay. So we're going to take a look at that. Um, and the thing is, if the person who is engaging in these behaviors, if they're really, really skilled, okay, by the time the dust settles, they'll have you constantly questioning yourself and not scrutinizing them at all. Okay. And so many abusers fall into that category. All right. And as I said, it can occur on a larger scale, right? In politics, it can happen in ministry, spiritual abuse. It's whole entire congregations, whole entire political parties, whole entire nations, right? And this is where gaslighting comes into play. The issue with manipulation is this, is that over time, it can kind of erode your sense of self-confidence, and it can cause you to second guess yourself, not trust your own judgment, and to become inordinately dependent on the opinions of others just to navigate your day-to-day life and your day-to-day existence. So let's look at those tactics. We're going to talk about 9 of them. Number 1 is guilt induction. Guilt induction. Guilt induction looks something like this. They may imply that something negative has occurred in your life because of your association with someone else, or if this is someone that you've trusted, they may exploit your insecurities that you've shared with them, and cause you to feel responsible for something that is totally not your responsibility. Um, One way that this might manifest is playing the victim, where they've done something to harm you or to hurt you, and when you attempt to hold them accountable for it, they become the victim, and they become downtrodden, and they become despondent. And I call it the bait and switch, because now the focus is on how you've caused them to feel, okay, according to them, and not on what they initially did to you, okay? So guilt induction is really when they cause you to feel guilty about something that's not your fault, and it's probably their fault. Okay. Ingratiation. Ingratiation. This is when someone purposefully establishes a good relationship with you, a great rapport, great camaraderie, etc., etc. But the motive is not to be your friend. The motive is not to be your life partner. The motive is not to be your support. Okay. The motive is you have something that they want, and they're setting you up so that you'll be willing to release it to them. So ingratiation means basically that they're kissing up to you, and they're probably flattering you and complimenting you excessively. Okay. Excessively. Um, because they want something. And a lot of times in an abusive relationship, what they want, you don't even realize you have. You don't even know you have it yet, okay? But they've they've peaked it. They know that you have it, and they will ingratiate themselves to you, become overly helpful, um, and it's also a ploy to encourage dependence on them. So we've talked about guilt induction, and we've talked about ingratiation. Let's move on to deceit. Deceit. Okay, so when we're talking about deceit, it may look something like this. They may be dishonest by hiding something from you, omitting something from you, or or if they don't feel like being really creative, they just flat out lie. They just make up stuff. They just lie to present the scenario that they want and need for you to buy into. They need you to buy into a certain scenario, and so they will hide information from you, um, that will prevent you from buying into it, or they'll just make up stuff, just flat out lie. Here's another thing that they might do. They may share the truth, and you got to watch for this one. This one is pretty effective if you don't know what you're looking for. They will state facts, not truth. They will state facts out of context. They will state facts out of context. For example, say a couple has a verbal dispute. Say the one partner spits on the other partner, and in retaliation, the one that was spat on shoves them. Okay? It may be reported, well, they shoved me, while omitting the little detail that they spat on this person first. Okay. And so you have to be careful about people who will speak fact, but out of context, which means it's not true. Okay. Which means it's not true. Okay. Here's another thing that happens. And you see this often in domestic violence relationships and relationships that are incredibly toxic. Over time, frustration builds up in a victim, and maybe he or she begins to scream and yell at the top of their voices because they're just so frustrated. Anyone who's viewing this may think that this is horribly irrational behavior and that the victim is actually the problem, but that's because they are observing this behavior out of context. They're not understanding that this is not the first time that this individual has been mistreated, or embarrassed or humiliated. And so to them, it seems like an over the top reaction. Okay. All right. So deceit has many little faces. Here's another one: love bombing. Love bombing. Okay. A lot of times you'll find this at the onset of an abusive relationship where it's over the top and it's maybe, extravagant meals, maybe it's back rubs, maybe it's a lot of attention, hanging on your every word, complimenting you, buying you things without you asking for them, being supportive when you have a bad day at work, picking you up, surprising you, taking you to dinner, etc., etc., etc. Whatever it is that you really, really like, you're probably getting a whole lot of it. And you're probably getting more of it than you ever gotten before. And you probably let them know that you were liking these things. Okay. So here's what happens: it's intense and persistent attention. And everything happens so quickly, everything happens so fast that if a victim's not savvy, if a target's not savvy, they'll fall for it. Okay. Because the whole idea is to not give you time to think about where is all of this coming from, and is this real, and can I rely on this? And the purpose is to encourage immediate emotional dependence. Immediate emotional dependence. So a person who's engaging in love bombing is not very patient. They're not trying to let the relationship take a natural course, because that involves investing in an authentic way, and that they're not really trying to do that. So love bombing is when you get an inordinate amount of attention, and it comes really, really fast, and it's really, really um, consistent, and it's very, very persistent. And the goal is to encourage an immediate, intense emotional dependence on the person who's doing the love bombing. Okay. Gaslighting. Gaslighting. You've heard us talk about gaslighting before, and it comes from a movie from way, way back in the day, 1940 something, um, where the husband was literally trying to drive his wife crazy, and he would do things that cause her to question her own sanity. So, gaslighting, um, when it's implemented relatively consistently, can make you feel a little crazy, make you wonder about your own sense of reality, cause you to question your own memory, cause you to question your ability to recall what has happened in an event. Um, um, and one of the things that an abuser will do is engage in inappropriate behavior, engage in harmful, maladaptive behavior, and then deny that it ever occurred, and say that the victim is imagining things, making things up, being oversensitive. Okay, so that's gaslighting. Gaslighting over time will make you feel mentally unstable, and it will cause you to question your own judgment and to question your own experiences. Things that you've actually experienced, you will question and you will doubt and you will wonder if they really occurred, if you're dealing with someone who's really skilled at gaslighting. Passive aggressive behavior. This one works my last nerve. It really does. Passive aggressive behavior is aggressive behavior that pretends to be passive. It presents as passive on the surface, but it is aggression that's not being owned by the person who's doing it. Okay, and it's really, really, it's dishonest. It's dishonest because they're expressing themselves in a way where they're not owning what they're expressing. Okay, and this might present as sarcasm, you know, sarcasm, always having a sarcastic, negative remark to make, telling jokes or teasing. We're teasing, okay? And I'm just playing, and you're way too sensitive. You take things too personally. I was just kidding. I mean, come on, relax, relax. You're too uptight, okay? And so passive aggressive behavior, it can affect you in a way that it throws your own mood off. You can become irritable, you can become frustrated because you're being subjected to it. Okay. Um, if you say, for example, I'm about to make an important call for work, I'm working from home and I'm about to make an important call, and so I really need the house to be quiet. And then they decide they're going to do dishes, they're going to do laundry, they're going to have a phone conversation in another room talking loudly enough that you can hear them. And so a person who's engaging in passive aggressive behavior is expressing displeasure and anger and frustration with you, but they're pretending that they don't feel those things. But their behavior makes it clear that they do. So this one works my last nerve. It's like I'm allergic to it. I just cannot. I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. I can't. Okay. Triangulation. Triangulation involves including another person in a dispute or disagreement. And it doesn't have to be a volatile one, just a differing of opinions, but involving a third party um, to pretty much just gang up on the person that's disagreeing with them. And so you'll see this a lot also in abusive relationships where the abuser may enlist the best friend of the victim or a family member of the victim, a confidant of the victim, and using some of those other tactics that I've already described. Omission, just being deceitful, presenting things out of context, and inquire as to an opinion of the support system for the victim. Um, and it's presented in such a way where the person who's being asked almost has to agree with the abuser because of the information that's not been relayed, because of what's been omitted, or because of the lies that have just been told. And so triangulation involving another individual to undermine the veracity, to undermine the thought process of the target. Okay. All right. We've talked about 7 so far. So, number 8 is covert or overt threats. A covert threat might be that when the abuser becomes angry, they tap their fingers. They tap, 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 tap on the tabletop or whatever. And so you can be in a room full of people, and if something happens that displeases an abusive person, and this is their signal to you, this is a covert, undercover signal to you, the target, then the tapping begins. And the tapping just appears to be tapping to anyone who doesn't understand what that means, or anyone who doesn't understand that it's a covert signal to the victim, okay, that the abuser is displeased, is unhappy. Or the threat can be overt. I'm going to punch you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to call your boss at work. I'm going to cause you to get fired. I'm going to call the press and tell them whatever. Okay. So the threat can be overt, which means that it is spoken, it's blatant, it's out in the open, or it can be covert, where it's implied, it's expressed in such a way that the target understands that they're being threatened, and it's very possible that the people around them don't pick up on it. Okay. And this is a tactic that is often used in domestic violence. And then, last but not least, this is really passive aggressive too, but last but not least, the silent treatment. Okay. When someone's using this manipulative behavioral um, approach, they may ignore you or stop talking to you as a form of emotional punishment. They are trying to hurt your feelings, they are trying to offend you. Now, there's a difference between that and choosing to disengage from someone who is constantly hurting you. Okay, so if someone is causing you great angst, causing you great pain, and you choose to stop interacting. The motivation doesn't have to be that you want to hurt them. The motivation could simply be that you're just guarding your peace. You're just guarding your peace. That's all. And you can't have peace if you're in conflict all the time. And so sometimes it's wise to simply disengage from a toxic situation for which there is no resolution coming at that time. If people have set out to harm you or to hurt you or to throw you off balance or to threaten your emotional or your physical or your psychological well being, then disengaging is the wise thing to do. But when we talk about the silent treatment is designed to force the target to do something that they don't want to do. It's designed to make them do something that the perpetrator believes that they won't do otherwise. And typically, this will happen when someone's been told no somehow. When they've been told no, okay, and they can't handle hearing no, then they may shut down and get icy, salty, silent, stoic, angry. So, really, it's anger because they've not gotten their way. And it's also an indication that they struggle with respecting boundaries, with respecting your right to say no, with respecting your right to not be uncomfortable if you choose not to be. All right. And so, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about manipulation, really. And Manipulation 101 is the name of this segment. And the purpose of this was to look at 9 tactics that are often used that are truly just manipulation, an attempt to shape and impact, inform, and change the way another individual views themselves, views that particular relationship, or views the world at large. In segment 1, we've looked at 9 manipulation tactics that are very, very prevalent in toxic relationships and in abusive relationships. Okay, so they were guilt induction, ingratiation, deceit, love bombing, gaslighting, passive aggressive behavior, works my nerves, triangulation, covert or overt behavior. Remember, covert is hidden and undercover, and overt is right out in the open. Okay. Then the silent treatment was the last one. Makes my other eye twitch, by the way. So we've looked at 9 tactics, and it's important that you kind of familiarize yourself with those. I encourage you to tune in to segment 2 when it premieres. We will be talking about, are you being manipulated? Are you being manipulated? This is Apostle Cheryl with Judas Roy Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. You stay safe out there. Blessings to you.